Imagine you're sitting at your desk at work and your boss just pissed you off again. You literally don't know how much longer you can handle this BS. So what do? You start texting your work bestie. Thank God for this lovely woman who's a few cubicles down, who totally understands how psychopathic your boss is. And every time you're having boss drama, she's your go-to gal. You vent about your boss in the lunchroom. You go out for drinks afterwards and complain about the company. She's your go-to gal. And so the first thing you do is you storm back to your desk. You're picking up your phone, you're sending out that text message, just letting it all out so you can move on with your day. And then all of a sudden you hit send, and the minute you hit send, that pit in your stomach starts happening and you're like, uh-oh, I think I just did something really bad. You quickly open your phone again and you notice that you sent that entire text message to your boss, to your freaking boss. And you're thinking, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. What can I do about this? Where's the delete button? Why has Apple not come up with a delete button? It is almost 2025. And you take that deep breath and you know that the relationship with your boss has changed forever. And if you've had something similar happen to you, where you sent the wrong text message, sent the wrong email, said something about someone, and it went straight to them, I would probably bet that happened during a Mercury retrograde. So we're going to break down Mercury retrograde today, how it relates to our relationships, and how we can best prepare so that our relationships don't end up in the disaster zone after each and every Mercury retrograde.
You're listening to the Relational Astrology Podcast, where we use the powerful tool of astrology to transform relationships in every area of your life: romantic, personal, professional, and beyond. This isn't your typical astrology podcast, and you don't need to be an astro expert to join in. Get ready for real-life examples, practical tips, and tools you can start using right away to strengthen your connections. Ready to improve the relationships in your life? Grab your birth chart and let's dive in.
As I'm recording this, we are under the influence of a Mercury retrograde. So Mercury, please be kind to me as I am doing a full day of content recording. But there is so much to know about Mercury retrogrades, and they get a really bad rap. And I'm here to debunk some of the myths around Mercury retrograde, but as your relational astrologer, more specifically, help you understand how they can actually be helpful instead of hurtful in our partnerships. And of course, if you're new here, hi, I'm Mandy Rose. I consider myself the relational astrologer. We talk about all different types of relationships here on this podcast, and not just romantic. And as you could see from the example I gave you as we opened up this episode, there are a lot of work relationships, client relationships that can heavily be impacted by our Mercury retrogrades. So we're going to break all of that down today. I think we should really start out with a little refresher, a little reminder of who Mercury is, a little astrology 101 to catch you up if you are new to astrology, but you're totally into relationships. So Mercury is the planet that rules over our mind, our communication, our connection, our conversations. I like to consider all the planets a life coach. And if you haven't listened to our life coach episode yet, make sure you go back and listen to it after this episode, where I break down each of the planets and who they are to us as life coaches and how they teach us. But a refresher on Mercury. Mercury is here to teach us lessons on how to connect and communicate with other people. He teaches us how to speak, how to learn, how to listen, the tone and language that we use, and what we're supposed to be focusing our mind on during different seasons of our life. Because remember, Mercury is that processing software system that we have. And sometimes we process information in really fast, quick, efficient ways during certain seasons. And other times it feels like our mind is mush, like we cannot even form a sentence. Words are hard. And so Mercury, depending on what he's up to in the sky, is going to dictate how our mind is working and operating. And when it comes to relationships, communication is the number one thing in all of our relationships. Even the top relationship experts that don't believe in astrology are going to constantly say communication is king. Communication is everything. Even in business, communicating your messaging and your marketing and your services to potential clients. In your office, communicating on tasks and to-do lists and deadlines and who's doing what. In friendships, communication on plans and what's going on in your life, and holding contact and communication, calling each other, checking in on each other. Because without communication, we don't have relationships, essentially. So Mercury is very, very important. Now, when we think of Mercury and his retrogrades are periods where our mind isn't moving forward. Instead, we are course correcting and we're going back over things. And Mercury retrogrades bring a lot of lessons. We see them as hiccups, disruptions, inconveniences. This is why Mercury retrogrades get a bad rap, but they're lesson learning periods. So that's what we're going to break down today. I'm going to help you by the end of this episode know what to expect during Mercury retrogrades. They happen often, 3 to 4 times a year. So Mercury is the most retrograding planet. He is so close to us here on Earth. When he retrogrades, he's not actually moving backwards in the sky. He is optical illusioning us. So it appears as if he is going backwards in the sky from our perspective here on Earth. And through the episode, not only will you know what to expect, but how to prepare and how to make sure that your relationships come out on the other side with the lessons learned. And then you can move forward to the next level, the next chapter in your partnerships. So if this sounds good to you and you're ready to dive in, grab your cup of tea or take a sip of whatever beverage you have near you. Today, I am drinking the Gemini tea from my Astro Tea collection. The reason I picked Gemini is because Mercury rules Gemini. Gemini is about the mind, communication, multitasking. And so I thought it would turn my brain on. We have some herbs in here like herbamate and skullcap, which are really good for mental clarity, mental cognition. So it felt really fitting for this episode. So I'm going to take a sip. You take a sip and we'll dive in. So Mercury retrogrades are going to affect all of our relationships, no matter if they are romantic, professional, personal, or even the relationship we have with ourselves. Because Mercury retrogrades are going to make us question. They're going to make us think. They're going to force us to go inward and reflect upon. Remember when we're dealing with retrogrades, it's the word reanalyze, reassess, reconnect, relearn. Any word with happens during retrogrades. And since Mercury is retrograding so often in the sky, we are circling back. Now, the thing with a Mercury retrograde, although they are inconvenient, right? It deals with travel disruptions, travel hiccups, like a plane getting canceled last minute, a flat tire in your car. It deals with our technology, so tech glitches like sending the wrong text to the wrong person or your phone dropping in the toilet. And it deals with communication, so you're telling someone the wrong time to meet up or the wrong deadline for a project. Because it's these things that really impact our day-to-day and our partnerships and our relationships in all areas of our life, Mercury retrogrades are very inconvenient. But they're not major life lessons, not like Saturn and Uranus and some of the other planets. They just happen frequently. And again, they're just lessons. So inconvenient, not dramatic. The thing with a Mercury retrograde is they're short. They're 3 short weeks. So most anything can be put on pause during a Mercury retrograde. So let's kind of go into some broad spectrum do's and don'ts for all Mercury retrogrades. If you're kind of still getting used to this Mercury retrograde astrology thing and you want to debunk some of the pop culture stuff that you've maybe read in a magazine or heard one of the other astrologers talking about, with Mercury retrogrades, we ideally don't want to move forward on things like launching projects, launching things out into the world, because as Mercury retrogrades, we're going to have to go back. We're going to have to review it and re-edit it and revisit it. Now, you may want to launch anyways because you have a deadline or it's something that's been planned in advance and you didn't know about the astrology. If so, we are just going to understand that a revision might be necessary and that revision may make it more beautiful. We're going to work with the cosmic energy at all times. Just as long as we understand it, we can make sense of the chaos. We want to make sure with our technology that all things are backed up, that our passwords are saved, that we are protected from cyber crimes and things like that. When it comes to transportation, you just want to make sure you cross your T's, dot your I's, double, triple check your travel plans, double check your tire pressure, your oil, all of those things so that you can best prepare for the Mercury retrogrades. How I explain retrograde energies, whether it's Mercury or any other planet, and I know a lot of my clients love this analogy. Let's say your neighbor texts you and you're like, oh yeah, I'll be right over. So you grab your shoes, you rush out the door, you are going from your house to your neighbor's house. So you walk down the sidewalk, you cross the street, you get to your neighbor's house. You travel that distance. That is when the planet is moving forward, making moves, going places, right? Mercury's going forward in the sky through a certain zodiac sign. Then you get to your neighbors and you realize you forgot your phone. You're like, crap, I don't have my phone. I have to go back. So you go back over the same path that you just crossed. You go back down the driveway, over the street, down the sidewalk, back to your house. And the whole time you're thinking, you're reviewing, you're analyzing. How did I forget my phone? It must be sitting on the counter. Next time I got to slow down because now I've wasted 10 minutes of time and we could be chit-chatting and hanging out, having a glass of wine, but now I got to go back. So you've learned a lesson. The lesson is to slow down, double, triple check. So that retrograde period where you went back was your redo. You're relearning, you're reassessing, your internal reflection. You get to your house, you grab your phone, you put it in your pocket, and you get back to your neighbor's house, crossing that same area of the neighborhood a third and final time. And as you're walking back, you're like, I'm not doing that again. Lesson learned. That is what happens in our retrograde cycle. So when a planet's retrograde ends and we've learned the lesson, we get this third opportunity to improve it, do it right. Kind of like a cosmic do-over. And when it comes with Mercury, it's like a communication do-over. Being able to say something again the right way, correcting a contract, correcting something that went wrong. So it makes it more beautiful. The edited version gets to be an upgraded version. So I want you to think of Mercury retrograde as this opportunity to level up, but it may come with some disruption during the season. Okay, so how does it impact relationships, right? Let's get into the relational aspect of all of it. Because relationships are so heavily connected by communication, this retrograde period where Mercury is going backwards in the sky and our communication is all jacked up, we may be sending mixed messages, mixed memos, wrong texts to wrong people. These tech glitches are happening. And so we can have a lot of conversations go awry during a Mercury retrograde. Now, of course, the way in which this plays out is going to depend on the zodiac sign Mercury is retrograding in. In 2024, Mercury has retrograded through all the fire signs. And so there's been a lot of speaking up for yourself, being bold and brave and courageous and speaking your truth and having tough conversations because you have that like inner fire of bravery that you don't normally have. So each year it's going to look different. Now, something else to keep in mind is how Mercury retrogrades impact us personally is going to be dependent on our birth chart. It's going to be dependent on what zodiac sign Mercury is retrograding through. Because it's in that area of our life, we're supposed to be mentally, our mind should be there, mentally reflecting, mentally reviewing, mentally course correcting. And the specific relationships connected to that house, that area of our chart, are going to be most impacted. And if this is interesting to you, subscribe, come back for next week's episode, because next week's episode, we are going to dive into each of the houses in your birth chart and the relationships that are connected to each house. So when you have a Mercury retrograde in, let's say, your 8th house, you know that the specific relationships connected to the 8th house are going to be mostly impacted during the Mercury retrograde season for you personally. So of course, astrology is complex and layered, and I try to keep it as simple as possible. But if you're following along, you're picking up what I'm putting down, come back for next week's episode to get more detailed understanding of all of this. So moving on, how Mercury impacts our relationships specifically is that it allows us sometimes to revisit old conversations. You know, the thing that you talked about with your partner a really long time ago? And you're like, I really want to bring that up, but I don't want to bring it up because every time we bring it up, we get into a fight. We're having a good time, so I don't want to bring it up, but we really need to talk about it. A Mercury retrograde may force that conversation, a circle back, a revisiting of sorts, because it's time to have that conversation, take it off the back burner and deal with it and address it. Or maybe you revisit an old topic that you thought you put to bed at work. It was a frustration, a grievance, something that you vocalized, and you're like, okay, it's done, it's over with. And all of a sudden, your boss wants to bring it up again and ask for your opinion. Has anything new happened? Have you been noticing these things starting up again? And you're like, what? This is really still going on? Because it needs to be reviewed. Now, besides old topics being revisited, we can also have a lot of miscommunications. So sometimes your language and your tone and the way in which you're expressing and communicating and speaking comes across different in a way that you didn't mean for it to be. So maybe you answer someone's question and you're just a little snappy, right? That miscommunication. Someone read it wrong. Or maybe you typed something to someone and you meant to say 5 p.m. and you accidentally said 7 p.m. and then you never went back and looked at that message. And so all of a sudden the meeting happened and you were 2 hours late because you texted the wrong time. So definitely miscommunications as far as like data and facts and set things can be really disruptive in relationships. A lot of fights happen from just simple miscommunications. I actually just had something similar happen during this current Mercury retrograde. I planned to meet my partner at a restaurant at 7 p.m. And I simply said, meet me at the restaurant at 7. Well, I didn't specify what restaurant. And I forgot that we had a conversation the day before about this new restaurant we wanted to try. And I was just bringing it up like casually, like, oh, we got to check it out sometime. So the next day, when I said that, he assumed we meant the new one. And I assumed we were going to the one that we always go to because that's our regular. And why would we go anywhere else? So you can imagine 7 p.m. rolls around. I'm starving. We're at 2 different restaurants. We're in 2 completely different places. And now during this Mercury retrograde where we have decision fatigue and we can't make a decision, it's like, okay, are you coming to me? Am I coming to you? How busy is it? And like, we're trying to figure it all out. That by the time we figured it out, it was so late that I was just like, I just want to go home. Like, I'm just tired. I'm just going to have some food at home. Let's call it a wrap. Meet you at home. We'll have dinner in bed, like, such a Mercury retrograde thing. It was such an inconvenience. And we were both looking forward to just spending time together and having a good meal and going home and just cuddling up in bed, watching our show. And it all got jacked up. But again, because we understood it was Mercury retrograde, we laughed about it. We didn't get frustrated. We didn't make it a whole deal. It was just like, duh, let's not do that again. Another thing that can impact our relationships, and I see this often in businesses, is decision-making fatigue. It's really hard to make decisions. It's hard to know the truth. It's almost like your brain takes a nap and it's like, I can't process anything new. I can go back to old things, but I can't deal with new things. So sometimes things just don't move forward. And if you're in relationship with somebody, like it's a client, they're like, come on, let's go. And you're like, I don't know what to do. Again, impacting our relationships. Okay, so I know I said Mercury retrogrades happen often. They happen 3 to 4 times a year, so we cannot avoid them. So how are we going to navigate them in our relationships? They are lesson learning periods, right? So first and foremost, number 1, it is meant to slow us down. Reflect, slow down. You would not have forgotten your cell phone if you took the time to double check your pockets, but you were so excited that you ran out the door. This Mercury retrograde 3-week period allows you to go inward and just double, triple check. Double check before you send the text. Double check and think again before you communicate, before you express, before you share something. Understand that rushing can cause more delays during this time. And when you are having conversations with people, sometimes it's good to think about what you want to say, what you want to communicate, what you want to express before the conversation. So if you're going to a meeting, take notes ahead of time so you don't forget something. If you're having that really difficult conversation with your partner or something needs to be addressed, you took some notes ahead of time so it doesn't go off topic and you don't ramble on, or you're not getting way off track that you never actually solved the initial problem. Or maybe you need to reflect on how you feel so that you can communicate that in the moment. So a lot of slowing down mentally, slower conversations, talking about things that are old and bringing them back up. The second thing that you definitely want to do in your partnerships is double, triple check. Double, triple check, especially if you're dealing contracts, negotiations, you're trying to agree on something, you're coming to some sort of understanding. You want to double check that nothing was missed, that something wasn't brushed under the rug, because it will come back. When Mercury comes out of retrograde, he's got to go back a third and final time. So for example, in a work environment, you're sending an email about a deadline of a project and you're saying everyone needs to have their stuff turned in by this date, and you're messaging and you're emailing everyone and everyone's on board. Okay, cool. I'll get you the files at this time. You did not realize that that deadline actually got bumped up a week because the client had something come up and they need everything quicker. And you missed that memo. You missed that in the weekly email from your boss. And now everyone's thinking, oh, I can get it done. No problem. I'll work on this. I'll get up to that on Friday. And all of a sudden you're like, oh crap. I now got to go back, circle back to everyone that I sent this email out to and rush them. And now you're like in this panic and stress because of one little tiny sentence in the email from Monday that you misread or misunderstood. So double, triple check. We want to be super clear, super concise in our communication. And when those hiccups come up, patience and grace, patience and grace. This is the best part about astrology, is we can have the understanding, the awareness of the chaos in the sky, And therefore, we are not stressing out or blaming people for things. We are like, okay, this is a Mercury retrograde lesson. My bad. Now I know. Let's move on. Now, the third thing to understand and to work through this energy is that you want to revisit something, but you don't want to react. Because we're not supposed to be making moves during a Mercury retrograde, but if something comes up that needs that reflection, that needs to have another conversation, that needs more clarity, so it's an old argument, it's an old conversation, it's an old topic, it's not about reacting. It's about saying, well, why wasn't this fully handled? What more do we need to discuss? What other information do I not know? Sometimes it's about asking more questions. Maybe you don't have all the data. Maybe you don't have all the facts. Maybe you were making a decision without all of the information. That Mercury retrograde, if that topic is coming back, if there's a chance for a review or reflection or someone's asking your opinion again, take the opportunity. We don't want to react and be like, okay, now I need to do this. Like, no, ask more questions. During a Mercury retrograde, I am such a question hoe. I am asking all the questions. I want to know all the details. It's such an opportune time to acquire more data points. So when the Mercury retrograde is over and I can launch or I can move forward or I can take my ideas and put them on paper, like I got so much more to work with while I've slowed down mentally. And when it comes to relationships, sometimes you need to ask the person in your relationship with questions, not always assuming that they think the same, feel the same, have the same perspective, have the same wisdom. They're growing and evolving and learning every single day. Sometimes we just assume the way that they felt 3 years ago is how they still feel. Mercury retrogrades will often bring up these old topics and help you realize that the person you're in partnership with has evolved and grown and something in their mind has changed. The way they see the world has changed. Their experience has changed. And it's time to communicate that, get up to date on this information in their mind and their brain from their perspective. I've seen this happen with my clients during Mercury retrogrades. For example, I had a client that went home to a family reunion and they had not seen their family in 5 years because they moved to another state. And they were so worried about traveling back during the Mercury retrograde. But I was like, you already bought your plane tickets ahead of time. Just double, triple check. Everything's going to be all right. They get to this family reunion and there's this one family member that is flipping out. The minute they say hi, they kind of have this snarky attitude and they're like, what did I do to them? Like, I haven't even seen them in 5 years. What is their problem? Turns out that 5 years ago, they said that they would call and then they completely forgot. And in the last 5 years, my client thought that maybe like life just had gotten busy or they didn't really care to connect or, life just happens. And they thought nothing of it. Meanwhile, this family member wanted to bring up that phone call and that promise that she made that she would call that she never fulfilled and brought it all back up. And it led to a little bit of tension and argument. But the beautiful thing with that Mercury retrograde is it revisited a conversation that never happened. It revisited a topic from the past that they were able to solve and all of a sudden get back on track in their relationship. And she said this was like such a blessing in disguise because now she's getting to know this family member's other family and other friends, and they have so many similarities. And in 5 years, all these things have changed. And like, had she never gone, this would never have happened. So love Mercury retrograde for a lot of these lessons and things that he does bring up from the past. Now, we do want to be cautious and careful because oftentimes during Mercury retrogrades, depending on the zodiac sign he's retrograding through, we can sometimes have blasts from the past of old relationships. Exes texting, exes reaching out, old bosses reaching out with new job opportunities, old friends that you've kind of like cut out from your life. People could be reaching back out because they're going back to an old text message in their phone that you sent them 3 years ago, or they're going back through their social media portfolio and they're like, oh my gosh, I saw this picture and it just made me think of you. Mercury retrograde made me think of you in the past. So I want to reach out and revisit this relationship or revisit this conversation or check in and see if you still don't want to date me or don't want to be my friend. So just be cautious and careful. Traditionally, if people from your past come back during a Mercury retrograde, what I usually advise is, again, revisit, don't react. Don't make decisions during that Mercury retrograde because, again, your mind is not forward thinking. We're not taking all the data and facts. So maybe it's good just to have a conversation of clarity and wrapping it all up and saying, you know what, it really was a great time in my life, but I've moved on. Or maybe there's some questions that you didn't get answered when this relationship ended, and it's going to help you move forward. So just be cautious and careful. People from the past do come back during Mercury retrogrades. Now, my fourth tip for Mercury retrogrades when it comes to relationships is practice patience. 3 weeks is not that long. You can put things on the back burner. So if you're trying to book travel plans, you're trying to sign a contract, you're trying to negotiate something, it could be frustrating. Sometimes it just needs to get done, and then you want to be cautious and careful. But if you could just be mindful and practice that patience, give it time, give it room to breathe, focus on something else. Everyone's going through the Mercury retrograde, not just you. So a lot of grace and compassion for other people. If they can't get back to you, they can't seem to make a decision, they're miscommunicating. Patience. Patience is the best word. Give it time and space. And the fifth thing is to embrace the theme and the specific lessons. Now, this is going to be specific to each and every individual Mercury retrograde, again, as he's retrograding through each zodiac sign. So just to bring it to this present moment, Mercury is retrograding through Sagittarius. Sagittarius is our beliefs, our philosophy, our mindset, our view on life. And this specific Mercury retrograde is forcing a lot of people to revisit their perspective on life. And I talked about it in my Mercury retrograde video over on YouTube, where I explained that this particular Mercury retrograde I can see impacting relationships, because as the people you are in relationship with changes their beliefs, changes their philosophy, it can leave you in a partnership wondering, who is this person? This isn't the person I fell in love with. I thought we were both Republican. Now they want to be a Democrat? Like, where did that just come from? Or maybe in your job, you have this core group that you connect with because you all have a similar religious affiliation. And all of a sudden someone says, you know what, I don't want to go to church anymore. And you're like, wait a second, hold on. Like, I can't hang out with people that aren't in this religious belief. And so now it changes the dynamic of your relationships and your partnerships. So this specific Mercury retrograde, because I know it's really like changing people's minds and how they view the world, that's going to trickle into our partnerships. So there's many different themes and many different ways that each individual Mercury retrograde can impact us. But my goal in this short episode was just to help you understand that Mercury retrogrades are important to recognize. They do teach us lessons. They do impact our relationships heavily, because communication is the most important thing in relationships. If we understand them, we learn the lessons, we have patience and grace and understanding, we'll get through them, no problem. We could deep dive so much more into Mercury retrogrades, and I will keep you up to date on the YouTube with all the upcoming Mercury retrogrades. But what a lot of my clients love to do is they hang out with us on Telegram, day-to-day astro weather memos sent right to your phone. And we've been talking a lot about this Mercury retrograde in the group chat because it is impacting everyone. And sometimes it's nice to vent with people in the astro family who get it. Those who get it, get it. Other people think you're crazy when you're talking about Mercury retrograde and blaming it on all these things, but there's a lesson to learn in all of it. I'll tell you one last story as we wrap up today. I just went to a business conference, and it was with highly successful women from all around the world. And I was the only astrologer in the room. There was a woman up on stage, and she was talking about being driven and motivated in your business. And don't just think about something. You got to act on it. Don't wait too long. Time is going by. People say, Mercury's retrograde. I can't do this. And this is happening, and my children and that. And then you don't launch anything. That is baloney. Just act. And I wanted to stand up and be like, not true. Not true. Do not tell people to launch things during Mercury retrogrades. You're telling people that you cannot blame it on Mercury retrograde, that it's like woo-woo. I was like, no. I wanted to stand up so bad because I was like, hold on, pause. But this is my goal, my mission as a relational astrologer. This is why I started this podcast, to educate people, to have better relationships, to understand that these cosmic energies do influence us. And if we work with them and be in cosmic alignment, we can learn the lessons, master them, move on, and do all the things that we dream of with ease instead of rolling a ball uphill. So I hope you loved today's episode. Before we wrap up for today, let's dive into our final little segment here, What's in Our Orbit, where you know what's going on in the astro family, and you can reach out and grab it if you so choose and pull it into your orbit. The first thing is, don't forget the Astro Weather Telegram channel, where we meet and I send those daily voice memos letting you know about Mercury retrograde and now the Mars retrograde that's starting and all the other things. The free 7-day subscription is going to end on 1/11, the day that the North Node moves into into Pisces. So January 11th, no more free subscription. Either you're in or you're out. You want to join us or you don't. So I hope that you take advantage of this. Come pop in for 7 days. We have education and workshops and new and full moon ceremonies. All of those things are archives. You can go back and watch the old workshops and learn astrology and learn your chart. But you can also get a flavor for these voice memos I send every day to help you navigate the day ahead. So you know what to do and not to do, and prepare ahead if you do have things that you want to launch or sign or create, or relationship conversations, days to do it and days to definitely avoid it. So come hang out with us over on the Telegram. We'd love to have you join the Astro family over there. The other thing in the orbit, don't forget, is Astro forecast readings as we're ending the year, looking at the year ahead. When I do your Astro forecast reading, not only are we on Zoom for an hour and I record it, but I'm going to send you a 25-page PDF breaking down the astro weather for the year ahead. And one of those pages on that PDF is all the Mercury retrogrades and how they're impacting your chart. So that's included in your reading. So you can take advantage of that. And then lastly, just don't forget, I let everyone know over and over again before the new year starts, we have the 2025, the 5th edition, which is so crazy to me, of the Astro Alchemy Journal. Updated edition with so many new things. So I hope you love it. I hope you enjoy it. And we have the PDF copy available as well. So if you don't necessarily need the hard copy, you want to print it out on your own, you want to download it right away and get started for 2025, you can get the PDF copy as well. So thank you so much for being a part of the Astro family. Hop over to IG and TikTok. Follow me over there. Connect. Let me know what you thought about this episode and how Mercury retrograde is impacting your relationships during this retrograde on today's episode post. And until the next episode, may the stars keep guiding you on your path.